All right, guys. Thank you so much for jumping on here with me and Bryan Falk here, owner of Falk Architects here in town, and welcome to Topeka Insiders, episode number 18.
Hey,
Welcome, Bryan.
thank you, Jen.
So thank you so much for your time, and Bryan is very excited to jump on here to share his life journey, business journey, entrepreneurship, and so on and so forth. So why don't you just kick it off and tell us how you came into the architect game?
Yeah. Well, did went to architecture school, and I did that probably starting in about 2002 or so, and went to actually school for about 8 years. So I didn't know what I wanted to be at first. I thought maybe I might want to be like a filmmaker. So I kind of stumbled my way through undergraduate a little bit, and I took a class where it was like kind of 3D animation, and the professor was an architect.
Yeah.
And got me a little bit of exposure to it, and decided, man, this is kind of cool. This is what I want to do. And so I kind of directed my career and my education towards that. Went to the University of Kansas for my master's of architecture, and worked for other firms for about 10 years. And then after about 10 years, I was like, oh, I just kind of want to do my own thing, and started my company. And it was not the easiest journey in the world, because when you first start an architecture company, sometimes people won't even hire you to redesign a bathroom. I don't know. They just don't think you're going to be around, because there's just not a
Because
whole
they
lot.
didn't think you had experience to kind of tackle anything.
Well, yeah, something like that. There's just it's a difficult path. There's not a whole lot of architects that start companies. So usually you work for another company. So probably besides mine, the next newest company I think that exists is probably like 20 years old, and or 30
Wow,
years old in Topeka, I think.
that's incredible.
Yeah. So, and so I've been practicing with my own company for about 8 years. We have an office in Nodo. We've got about, what we got?
Incredible place though, by the way, guys. Incredible place. So
Yeah, yeah. And we have probably 12, 13 people in Topeka, and we actually opened a branch in North Kansas City this year.
oh,
Yeah.
wow.
So we got two people over there. I have a project manager and an interior designer, and kind of growing that branch this year as well.
That's incredible.
Yeah, landed a pretty nice sized project recently over there. So it looks like it was a significant investment, kind of getting it started. And looks like it'll probably pay off, which is
That's
I'm
awesome.
excited about.
That's really cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that background. So how did you, when you were going to school at KU, like going for after architecture, how did you find your passion? Is that something that just one day that you got hit like, well, you know what, actually I was born to be an architect, or
Yeah.
was something that gradually that you came to realize?
I'd say it's a little bit gradual. I was lucky enough when I was high school, junior high, I got exposed to architecture in a few different places. My parents started a business, and they worked with an architect on the building for that business. And I kind of
Mhm.
saw that process happen. A few years later, they kind of designed a house with an architect. I saw that process. Ended up never building it, which actually happens a lot in architecture.
Yeah.
But I saw the process, kind of thought it was cool. For some reason, I had this idea that the math might be more than I wanted to take on.
Hmm.
And when I got in, really kind of interested in it, I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll just take some of these math classes and see how I do.
Sure.
And I did okay, and I got like a B. Which is fine.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, I can do this. So I went ahead and moved forward once I realized I could get past that hurdle. I always thought it was kind of interesting, but I just thought maybe it might not be for me, because it might be too math heavy.
Yeah.
It's really not. There's hardly any math in architecture.
Really?
Honestly. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I never
Everybody
thought
thinks
about
that
that.
there's
I
a
thought
huge
it's like
amount.
you got to be really smart with math and in order to be
There's a
successful.
separate discipline called structural engineering that does the heavy lifting when it comes to math. Yeah. I mean, honestly, the most we ever do is like kind of Excel spreadsheets to add up square foots and areas and
Really?
things, and maybe a little bit of math on adding up lengths of square footages, and kind of figuring how big something is. So subtraction and addition, a little bit of multiplication. We're not doing calculus.
Right.
Yeah.
That's really funny you said that though. That's really funny.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to picture it though, because for me, I'm somebody outside of the field, right? I have no clue. I mean, of course, you were part of my wife April's cat cafe,
Yeah.
a little bit. I mean, I saw pieces, bits here and there, but I wasn't when I saw the blueprints,
Yeah.
it was kind of like, I don't know, like Japanese to me. So I
Yeah.
couldn't really understand anything that was going on there. So
Yeah.
major respect. For me, I just always had a lot of respect for architects.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, that was a fairly simple thing, what we were doing with the cat cafe. We're converting a kind of a shell space into kind of like a place for cats and a little bit of a cafe, hence the name Cat Cafe. And
Right.
so it was there was a little bit of a code component to it, a little bit of like helping space plan it. We work with the contractor on a lot of this.
Yeah.
Is what a negotiated contract with a contractor. So it was a fairly simple architectural project.
Cool.
It was fun though.
That's
It's
awesome.
exciting to see
It's very
what she was
exciting
able
though.
to do. And
Yeah, I think you
it's fun
definitely
working
should.
with entrepreneurs like her and helping them, kind of make their dreams come true. It's a fun part of architecture.
Right. So Brian, so when did you say you want to screw up a little bit? Right. It's all good. Maybe look into the camera.
All right.
So how did you, like, when did you decide to move to Topeka?
Yeah. When I was going to architecture school, me and my wife got married. And so we were living in Lawrence. My wife got a job at the University of Kansas. And it's kind of weird. I look at the screen and then I look.
It's okay, Brian. It's all good.
So I went to the University of Kansas and my wife got a job working for the state of Kansas. And then she, once I graduated, I was like, hey, where do you want to go?
Right.
She wanted to go to Topeka. So we drove around Topeka, kind of got a feel for the town. I've been through a lot. I had family in this area, but it's this place we want to kind of like just live. And
Yeah.
and I thought the town was really cool. I thought it had really nice bones and looked to be about the right size and could accommodate like an architecture firm. And,
Right.
it's fun.
So that was like 10 years ago. You started kind of plant some roots here.
Longer than that. I'm older. I look.
You look great.
Yeah, no, that was 18 years ago. Yeah.
Wow. So like when you're starting out your new firm here, so I know today we're going to be talking about entrepreneurship. Most entrepreneurs would have to go through some bumps along the way. So what was some of the biggest hurdles that you had to overcome? Not trying to kind of have you go down memory lane big time, but maybe
Sure.
one piece you could share.
Yeah, hurdles for entrepreneurship. Well, I started a company in 2016, which was an election year. And a lot of people know that election year is like kind of business slows down.
That was a nasty year too, right?
It was a nasty year. So it started out, it went pretty good. Luckily, I had some connections in the field that kind of worked out pretty well. But about the time fall happened, like came about, like when the election was really in full stride, the phones just never rung. And I had some money saved up, but I was getting down to, pennies in the bank account left. And luckily by about early January or so, the phone started ringing again and people started calling, looking for services. I don't know if it was just because I stuck around, I made it through, that it worked out, but that was challenging. So I think having enough kind of startup capital that you can get through the first few years is probably critical to a lot of businesses.
So were you have to save up for that, or just kind of how did you go about it?
Yeah, I saved my money. I especially when I first 15 years or so of being an adult, trying to get $1 out of my wallet was my wife had to oil it all the time. I was just
hey, she's probably gonna listen to this, right?
Well, I mean it in a good way, but I
Yeah.
mean I was too frugal and but it was necessary in order to save money, in order to do what we wanted to accomplish.
Yes.
It takes money to sometimes make things happen.
So you were saying actually she wasn't on the same page with you regarding this goal
No,
that you
yeah,
guys
she
had.
was 100% on the same page. In fact, she had saved up a 401k through her own company, and she's like, "I support you 100%. We're doing this."
Wow.
And she's like, "If we need to use my 401k, I'll give you my 401k. We'll cash it out." All these things that people
Brian, that's
tell
huge,
you
though.
not to do. She was willing to do that because
That's huge.
she believed in our company. She believed in me. So it's pretty cool.
You know what people say about that? There's
Yeah.
a successful woman behind each successful man. So that's the case for you.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah,
I mean, it is
yeah,
the
yeah.
case.
She's pretty successful in her own. She's
Right.
Yeah, she runs a union called COAST, so she's the president of that organization, and she's very good at her job. Yeah.
That's incredible
Yeah.
because I've heard so many stories where the spouse would not be on the same page with, another spouse was going after their dream, which is incredible. I mean, for you to hear about that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Makes me a little teary-eyed when I think of that, actually.
well, I mean, that's a great story. I think,
Yeah.
I browsed through your website, I saw a lot of success and your team building, all that stuff. But that's a story that I think we're using this opportunity to get out to other people to know, hey, look, we have this to be in here. Brian and his family and his wife, it's got an incredible story to share. Then you're now a very successful architect firm here in town. Love to have you here.
Yeah, well, thank you.
And also, if you guys have not checked out Bryan's website, he's got a very successful team, which when it comes to business, starting out is really very, very difficult. Staying in business is very difficult. On top of everything, building a team, I think a lot of times is even more difficult
Yeah.
because I had the team, which is the past tense. I had a team and my team fell apart. I'm rebuilding my team.
Yeah.
So how did you get so many great people around you, like under your wings?
Yeah.
First of all, you're a good guy though, Bryan. You're a nice guy. So that plays a huge role.
Yeah, I try to be nice, but I can be kind of intense when it comes to building the business and the tenacity that it takes and the dedication and then trying to I don't know, give that tenacity to my teammates. I think that they all appreciate that and they know where I'm coming from. So I think it works out.
We'll talk about that here in a second too, because
Yeah.
I think that's an art.
Yeah,
That's an art
yeah.
how you relay that to your team members.
Yeah, try to lead. I'm trying to lead. I mean, I'm a probably can still learn a lot about leadership and getting people to see the vision behind what the company is and buy into it. I
Mhm.
think is a huge part of that is getting them excited about what I'm excited about, and then they're going to want to come to this company. They're going to want to work. They want to build the company,
Right.
and so we have. We give, in my opinion, some of the strengths of our company on like bringing in staff is, especially young staff, is they get the opportunity to work on all kinds of different projects, smaller projects, so they get really great experience. The people that we have coming in to our company, they learn so fast. They learn, in my opinion, they learn much faster than other companies because they get exposed to small projects, medium-sized projects, large projects, all different types,
Mhm.
and they get um, we don't just give them red lines and not explain what things are. They're doing it. They're learning it as they go. We have older people that provide mentorship to the younger people, and that's their role. And yeah, and then keeping them once we teach them is a big part of what we try to do. Um, yeah, if you invest in somebody's knowledge, you want that return on your investment. You want
Right.
them to stick with you and help grow and be a leader in the company.
So it sounds like you have a very healthy culture around your organization, which is, I think you probably started from day one, right? Like did you have a vision like, hey, what my team would have looked like? What kind of people I want to be surrounded with? I'm assuming you had that vision before you brought on each one of your team members.
Well, I'm definitely made some mistakes, both hiring mistakes
Oh yeah,
and
yeah, of course, everybody
leadership
would.
mistakes over the years. I would say that my biggest probably fallacy starting on was thinking everybody was going to think like I did, and they'll want the same things I do, and they'll see it. And what I've got to put myself in their shoes and think like them. And I think I gotten a little bit better at that. Like when we first started, we had a really terrible office. Like, well, actually, maybe about year two or three.
Mhm.
And in my mind, I was like, oh, it's just like we're working out of a garage or something like a startup, like
Yeah.
Bill Gates or Steve Jobs kind of thing. They didn't think it was
So
that
you
cool.
actually enjoyed that. You enjoyed that.
I didn't mind it, but
Okay.
we barely had heat at times. They had to go to a separate area to use the bathroom. It wasn't really even our
And so
office.
you thought they would
You'd
enjoy the
like
same
go
as you.
outside and go to a different building. Yeah.
Oh, I see.
They didn't see it like I saw it. Well, partially because I was saving a lot of money on rent. So I was like, okay, this isn't that bad.
That I can relate
But
that.
I
I can
didn't
relate to that.
but they didn't they didn't see it like I did. I made a mistake there. I should have upgraded our offices much earlier because employees care about that. The ones I've been around anyway do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I have an opposite story to share with you. So my first teammate I had was my assistant. He was 19, straight out of high school,
Mm-hmm.
no office experience whatsoever. But I gave him the best office, private office, bathroom, everything. He didn't perform. So it could go either way. I feel like it could go either way, but a comfortable office would go a long way. So, and I mean, building a team is very difficult. Do you have some type of right now mechanisms and to kind of glue your team together for the most part?
Um, well, glue the team together. That's a good question. We try to do activities together so that everybody thinks of each other as humans and not just like, I don't know, people that they work around. They're like
Right.
friends and maybe more than just coworker.
Right.
Like tonight we got a Christmas party. We're going to dinner and then we do usually do one or two other activities throughout the year where we just socialize and kind of get together and do fun stuff. I would say, you know, I don't know if there's a something I can specifically say that we're strategic about it beyond just there's a culture of treating each other respectfully with kindness, helping each other, not pushing people down, kind of helping raise people up instead. And I hope that that builds the kind of like a good work family, you know,
Yeah.
like so, and where people want to stick around, people, even if they maybe don't want to stick around, they at least appreciate what you did to help them grow as a
That's
individual.
actually incredibly, I think that's incredibly hard to find.
Yeah.
You know, because I mean, of course, I have quite a few clients where they would tell me how horrible their working culture was. You know, from where they came from, they always kind of something they didn't like about their work culture to the extent where they would leave for a different job because I've seen the transitions here and there. That's pretty incredible though. I feel like having a team that they can work together towards a goal on a daily basis where you probably have some hard projects here and there. So how do you guys kind of go about overcoming difficulties and things like that in projects? Let's say um, early on, especially when your team was smaller,
Mhm.
how did you kind of get past or get more projects? How did the snowball start and kind of getting bigger?
Hmm. Um, I think it typically what an architect firm will do is they'll do business development for the best quality projects where they go and they'll reach out to very specific clients in a niche that they specialize in and become known as the specialists in that niche. That's an effective method of business development in architecture.
Cool.
We don't do that.
Oh, you
We
didn't do
no,
that?
we don't. I should be doing that. I don't do that because we're just too busy. I kind
How did I
of
mean? I
equate
guess
it
how did you get
to
to so busy? I guess
I,
that's
I
a
think
good
just
question.
kind of we okay. My story is that I'm fishing, but the fish are jumping in the boat. But they're not these big whales. They're just these like kind of small little fish that jump in. And I'm like, okay, yeah, come on, fish, come on, jump on. And I'm so busy because kind of collecting the fish, I can't go hunt the whale. And I haven't ever hired somebody to go hunt the whale. This Kansas City experiment, we started doing that,
Yeah.
and the guy over there, that's Bob is his name, that he went and was whale hunting this year.
Yeah.
He did land a whale. It took bigger than anything I've ever caught, and he was able to do it. But it took him 10 months, to do that. So obviously there's some expense and such to invest in those things. So for small companies, it's hard to get to that point. We're starting to do that. So um, yeah, that's kind of our business development growth methods. Going back to growing employees. One thing we also do is like end of year reviews. A lot of people kind of think of it as time you got to listen to your boss, like say the things you do bad and things you do good, and then you get a bonus or a raise maybe
So
if
you
you
have
did
the
great.
annual reviews and stuff.
We do. We actually do that twice a year, but we don't. I wouldn't even call it a review really. What we do instead, it's more about um, I just listen to what they want to accomplish. And I'd say,
So you listen to
how
their
can
vision.
I help you get there? What can
Wow.
I do to help you? What is there things in the way of what you want to do in 1 year, what you want to do in 5 years? How do we get you there? What kind of projects do you like to do? It, Remind me if I don't give you those, if those come up, remind me, hey, by the way, I like those kind of projects. Somebody told me recently they like to do medical projects. I had no idea. So we did happen to have a medical project, happening right then. It's like, okay, I'm just going to switch this thing over to you. And the other person didn't
Wow.
care. We got enough stuff going on then. So we try to listen, try to help people with whatever they're trying to accomplish.
That's incredible though. I don't feel like a lot of employers would have take their time to like sit down and listen to, hey, what would you like to achieve? How can our company be the vehicle for you to achieve what do you want to achieve?
Yeah, but
Versus they would just say, hey, look, this is what we want out of you.
yeah,
That's a
I
completely
think
different approach. I mean, that's a really cool, right?
it's kind of obvious, but I didn't do it right away either. It took me a few years to get to learning that this is a better approach than criticizing people about their flaws. I think that's obvious, right? You shouldn't be doing.
I mean, that's what I did, because for me, like, it's really obvious. It's really easy to see the flaws in people,
Yeah.
right? And it's more difficult for people to see flaws in themselves.
Yeah.
I think it's even more difficult for people to come out, overlook people's flaws, but to see the positives out of people. I think you have a gift on building team. I mean, it's not like something anybody can put it together.
Well, like the guy in Kansas City. And so he landed, I mean, we haven't done the project yet, but he landed a project that's bigger than I was able to ever land in 8 years of the company. I worked for 8 years. I never did. He worked for 9 months and he got one really big one. And just like I'm not perfect, he's not perfect, but somehow his imperfections and perfections and that mix of who he is was able to land this thing.
Yeah.
And then my mix.
I love that story, sure. I mean,
my mix ain't as perfect as his, obviously, at least on this type of thing.
Because I feel like the mindset that you're putting out here is like, you are not really judging any projects by its size, right? It's kind of opportunities landing in your lap, and you just pick up these opportunities along the way.
Yeah, and honestly, this is a really terrible way to do business. Nobody should ever do this.
I wouldn't say so, though.
I'm working so hard that a lot of the architects won't take on these projects that we're taking on because they can't make money on them.
But the community impact, the brand impact you made.
We're helping out small businesses. I don't mind doing it.
Right.
I physically can, every time we give a proposal, I personally can do it for the amount of time at the dollar amount that's typical in our industry. It's difficult to always get every person within your team to be able to do those things. And then also those people, the efficiencies that there's just inefficiencies as you get kind of a little bit bigger as a company. And so we're having to get more sophisticated with our project management style, our time tracking, our next step. I was actually doing research on the way over here. There's architectural time tracking software that we're probably going to invest in and get a little bit better at making sure that the thing I can't remember, but there's a Greek philosopher or something that there's this principle, I can't remember what it's called, but the amount of time that you give somebody is how much time they will take on the task. So you give them a task, Paletti's principle or something like that. So I think this might be Paletti's principle. I could be wrong on that.
Yeah.
So you give them 100 hours, they're going to take 100 hours. You give them 50, they're going to finish that same task in 50. And so it's something I would say, okay, we have a project plan. We've allocated a certain amount of time for certain tasks. We got to stick to those. Okay. Well, I know that these are market rates because for the first 4 or 5 years of this company, I was doing the majority of this work, doing exactly what you're doing now. I know I can do it, even being a little bit rusty on CAD type software now that I haven't been doing a whole lot of that. I occasionally will jump in and do it and then test myself to see if I can still do it. And so it's possible to do, but just not everybody, some people are new grads or they don't quite know the straight line, right? So it's a little bit of a path to get to the finish line.
Right.
Teaching people where that is a difficult assignment in architecture. Probably in other fields too, but definitely in architecture is a complex field.
I think in most fields, like for me, from my real estate experience, I can relate to what you just said 100% because that's the path I took. I mean, I was not able to land a big listing or big buyer for a longest time. I just pick up the smaller clients along the way, and then I did the best I could. And then they appreciated my efforts, and then they would tell people that stuff. And just like back to April's Cat Cafe, my wife's Cat Cafe experience, I think she reached out to multiple architect firms, and you're hands down the best. She felt like she was treated with the utmost respect, and then you gave her their proposal the attention otherwise didn't get. There was no follow-up phone calls from other firms and things like that, and you're on top of it.
Yeah.
And you make I mean, just because that decision you made to give them the service, to offer them the service, and you're making a huge community impact.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, like a project like that is on the threshold of where maybe some architects might not even, they might be interested or they might not, just from a size standpoint.
Yeah.
And might be difficult for them to make a profit on those type of projects.
I can relate that to that a lot of times because especially like when I was starting out, nowadays I sometimes have to place a judgment where, hey, look, is this client will be like worth my time because my time is limited. I have to come in with my judgment to see if I want to take that on. So I can relate to what you're saying, 100%. So like you've been around here to speak up for almost 2 decades now. What are some of the projects really stood out to you? Like you really enjoyed seeing that the whole project that came to fruition and some projects that came out.
Well, when I first came to town, there was a state house project that my firm at the time was working on. It was really important to me. It was a cool project. It was really big, really expensive. They worked on it for like 15 years or 20 years or something. But it was neat to see that change and to begin see it updated. And I didn't ever work on it, but I'd walk and do tours and learn about it. I was not on that project, thankfully, because it was a long project. I think it was beneficial to me to be on the smaller projects. There was a project over on 29th Street when I was a young architect too. They called it the Flex Storage Building. And it was like a modernist architect out of Kansas City that did it. I always thought it was kind of like a cool little building. It's just
29th in Topeka, or
yeah,
where?
just like this like metal building. Now 29th and maybe close to Adams.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's got like this translucent plastic on it and it's metal and it's colorful garage doors. It's just kind of this weird little,
I know what you're talking about.
yeah, metal building. And I was like, that's kind of cool. You do throw a little flash on a metal building. It's got a little bit of style that's just a little different. And so it's kind of the two extremes of the architectural spectrum. This really expensive, like masonry, historic building that probably costs, I can't remember what it cost, but $600 a square foot or $1,000 a square foot at the time, which is probably like $2,000 a square foot now, versus this other metal building. It might have been, I don't know, $80 a square foot at the time, probably $160 a square foot now. And seeing two successful projects and just kind of watching those things happen. One of the first ones I worked on was the Bettis Family Sports Complex. And so it's like a,
wow, that's a big one.
Yeah. The wood glulam structures that actually they were Paralam, like kind of heavy timber structures were fun to detail. And the ones that I was able to when I was with another company, be kind of project managed for the first time. And, and the building related components of that was fun to work on.
That's incredible, because that's a really cool space that we have over there. By the way, the Sonic across the street is the #1 Sonic in the nation that I heard.
More sales.
That's crazy. Sales volume #1 in the nation.
It's crazy. Seems like none of the restaurants next to them communicate on anything.
But it's really cool. So so in the past couple of years, I mean, I know that a lot of the companies went through some turbulence, because COVID and things like that. Did you have to go through some of the ups and downs in the past couple of years to kind of make sure that everything is managed correctly?
Yeah, I think COVID was really scary for me. We were still pretty small at the time. So then, 2020, and we went from, I don't know, 5 to probably 2 or 3. So we lost probably 3 people. You know how everybody was resigning and moving on and doing different things. We had people move to different states. People just switch jobs, and
as COVID was
unfolding. Around that time. Yeah. And that was also the time where I had the junkie office. So a whole bunch of
okay.
There was just a bunch of stuff happening, and our staff just diminished in size. And I just put my head down, and everybody else, we had this crappy junkie office where I just went into the office during COVID. I was like, I'm working my way through this. And that was actually our best year we've ever had. And I did almost everything. I'd say, probably 75% of the work myself. Wow. Yeah. So I just worked tons of hours. I focused a lot on the company. I did not want this thing I'd created to sink because of COVID, and just leaned into it really heavy. And it was hard. It was really stressful. When I lost those people, I was like, I don't know what. This is weird. I'm not sad that I lost them or anything, but at the time it was really scary.
100%. Thank you so much for sharing that. Like, did they just kind of like, I'm not trying to get too personal on that. Yeah. Did they just kind of randomly call you, be like, I'm done, or here's my 2-week notice? Things like that.
It was just a
unexpected, right?
Variety of different ways. Some people, it was more of a personality conflict with me and that person, and then other people, they just did exactly what you said. Just say, hey, I'm moving on to something else.
Yeah. I think one of my employees he was on my payroll before COVID. Just literally because I was in a different office and I just heard him walk in and then walked out. I said, well, you're supposed to stay here. And he walked out, so which was very unusual. So a couple hours later, I went to his office to kind of knock on doors to check on him. The computer is showing, hey, look, rebooting. So he erased everything from my computer.
Oh.
the work computer, not my computer, the computer I gave him. So
Yeah.
it raised everything on there. There was not a whole lot of important stuff on there. And then he just had a note there, hey, you know what? I quit. Here's the office key. That was it. And then COVID happened.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's like, you know, at the same time, I didn't have to carry him through COVID, which was thankful. But how he approached that, I could relate to that. Because for us business owners, we had to take on a lot of risk here and there. Employees, a lot of times they didn't probably think that we had to take on all this stuff. Because once they quit, you took on all the work.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a little bit of a back and forth, you know, like the employer, if they're doing their job right, are probably like investing in that employee, right? They're teaching them, if
You're sacrificing something for them,
yeah,
right?
yeah, you're
Not just the money
definitely
part.
paying them, but there's
Yeah.
also usually more to it than that. And so sometimes that's frustrating because then you have to, I got to start over and create a new version of Todd or whoever that person is.
Todd was a good guy. Most Todds I know are good guys.
I just
But
made up the name.
no,
I
that's
didn't
really
never had
fun.
a Todd.
I really enjoy this talk because one thing I'm getting out of this conversation is the tenacity you have
Yeah.
towards different difficulties that you had to go through. What was that driving force behind you having that tenacity? Are you just a natural person that has the tenacity? Is like, you know what, if I'm not getting to the bottom of it, I'm not gonna quit. I'm not a quitter.
Well, I'd say I've got that kind of nerdness of single focus, you know, like a nerd might have, where I can focus and dedicate to very few things, where like a normal person might want to like have a wide variety of interests and hobbies. I don't necessarily have that. I like what I do for a living. I enjoy it. So I can nerd out on it. I really get into it. I can work overtime. It doesn't kill me, you know, from feel like my life stinks. I actually enjoy doing it. I like growing something that has been my focus for the last, 20 some years of my life. It's been
That's
fun.
incredible.
Yeah.
That's
I think that's probably the main thing. I mean, what was
so
your question again?
no, I'm
Did
just
I
saying, like,
answer
was
it?
that a
Yeah.
natural thing? So you just naturally have it, right? You just
Well,
have
I think
the focus you have. You just have it.
that nerdiness is probably not, I don't think anybody in my family is like quite like that. But my dad was an entrepreneur, and
Yeah.
I definitely watched his entrepreneurship journey because he started when I was at junior high
Mhm.
and grew something from kind of like a really scary moment when he's like, I'm doing this and have to take out loans, and he physically built his own building. He was a veterinarian, but he
He built the
he
building.
built the building. He was working nights at like an emergency clinic while building a building in order to kind of grow this thing. My family kind of like what we did. My parents, they put it all in. He showed me how to save. Like I was talking about how my dad is a good saver too. So I learned a lot from that, and listening to him talk about money and the value of it and how to save, compound interest. That he would talk to me about that all the time. So it's kind of like a little bit of like an MBA I went through like junior high school, college, where I'd learned a lot from him related to those things. I worked for him too quite a bit. I'd be mowing or painting or cleaning kennels or all those kind of things I'd be doing from very early on. And he had a few like investment properties, some houses that even when I was 6, I was helping him out on a regular basis.
Really?
Yeah, I think he got off like Tuesdays. He was off Tuesdays. He'd work Saturdays. So Tuesday was always the day that me and my brothers would go and we'd help him fix stuff at rental houses that's broken.
Hey, you just open up a can of worms. Now I'm going to ask you questions about that, which is, I feel like it's very fortunate you had to go through that, right? I mean, not a whole lot of people get to experience that. Some of the investor clients I have, they would have their kids be part of that stuff. I feel like I want my kids to be able to go through that as well.
Yeah.
So I guess my question for you is, how did your dad handle that? Did you have any consent?
I think I liked it.
You just wanted to be part of it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was probably painful, but I liked it. He did pay us a little bit. I mean, it grew as we go, but I think when we first got started, it might have been $3 an hour or something like that. And, by the time I was in high school, I was doing pretty good where I felt like I was
That's
I'm worth what you're paying me. You're paying me probably more than everybody else the same age or around. But I would, I'd be doing stuff that if he was to hire somebody to mow or paint, it would cost him more. So there
right.
is a win on his part too. But I was doing it at a high quality work.
But
And
he didn't force you to do it, right? Did he give you a choice
I
of
don't
like
think
not
at
to?
one point I thought I was like kind of missing out on the social aspect of not working around my peers because I was
Yeah.
working for my dad basically. So
Hmm.
I stopped doing that for a little bit and I was a waiter. I didn't really like waiting tables too much. I did it for probably 3 or 4 months. And
Yeah.
I think I went back and worked for him. So it was not a requirement. I think it may have been at some times, but not always. Sometimes he's like, I really need you guys, and you're coming. And other times, like, hey, who wants to come?
Mm.
Yeah, and you just kind of get volunteers, and yeah, but
That's really cool experience
yeah,
though. I
yeah,
really hope my kids would have the opportunity to go through that.
yeah. How old are your kids?
11 and 7,
11 and 7.
but they don't do anything for me though, with me, or let's say with me. They don't. Like, hey, look, hey, let's go.
Yeah.
Nah, I'm on my tablet.
So my kids have to do some stuff for me because um, they come to our office and they clean the architecture office on Saturdays. And while they're in there cleaning, I'm catching up on emails and writing a proposal or whatever I need to be doing on the computer.
I
And
never thought about that.
yeah, they clean the office. It usually takes them a couple hours to do. Um, and sometimes if they do a really good job, it might take longer than that. Occasionally they do some mowing, like we have a couple investment properties where they'll do some mowing and such. But I wish I had kind of had more stuff, honestly, because I think it really teaches them a lot. That
Work ethics and stuff.
Yeah, a little bit like helping the family out too. And there's some value to it.
Yeah.
And just like my dad used to buy me like a big soda afterwards, I do the same thing for my kids. They like having their little
really cool.
sugary treat as a
That's
reward.
really cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that with me.
Yeah.
Because I was going to ask you this question, like, how do you keep a work-life balance? Like, how do you keep that? Because
I
I
would
didn't know
say
what
some people don't think I don't have one. I don't have
Okay.
a good balance. I could probably, like my wife probably thinks I could fix that a little bit. There's days I mean, probably almost every day I'm not home until like 6 or 6:30.
Mhm.
And some days it's much later than that. Probably rarely am I ever home at 5:15 or anything
What
like
about
that.
the weekends? Like
Weekends, I'm not always. I would say some weekends I'll work half a day extra, but that's not probably mostly a couple hours
Mhm.
extra every weekend.
Right.
So I know the way I'd see it is if you work a little bit extra all the time, it's kind of like it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
And most people aren't going to do that. So that's my mentality. I try to coach my team into the same mentality that if you put in a little bit extra, eventually you're gonna get ahead of the competition because it's kind of like the compound interest, right?
Yes.
You're investing your time, you're getting better. And if you put a little bit extra in, you're gonna get here, then you're gonna get here, you're gonna get here, while everybody else is here, here, here.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, that's my philosophy because it's not like you cannot get to like level 10 like in a day. So you have to go through 10,000 hours to get to your mastery or whatever your expertise you have to get to. So let's say if somebody were to, say, hey, well, entrepreneurship is really cool. To some extent, I think it's a really cool thing, but more so it's like a discipline. You have to have that stuff to. So if a younger person or anybody who's wanting to become an entrepreneur, what would your advice be? Hey, John, you're going to entrepreneurship. What should be on the lookout for?
Yeah. I would encourage anybody to do it, but do it when you're prepared. I spent a huge amount of time thinking about it, preparing myself. I was preparing myself, I'd say, for 15 years for what I did when I did it.
Mm-hmm.
And even then it was hard. So prepare yourself. You're making or taking a little bit of a risk. Make sure it's a calculated risk. Have some, a good business plan where you've thought through everything. Don't assume best case scenarios are going to happen. It's probably not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Probably assume almost worst case scenarios. And then is there a way that you can, let's say it doesn't work as fast as you need it to. Can you support yourself in some other manner while you build it up? I think I read somewhere, I love Harrison Ford, Star Wars, Indiana Jones, all that. He was talking about that he just outlasted everybody in Hollywood. He was like a carpenter that he was supporting himself as a carpenter of the stars. And the peers around him that came up when he was like, whenever he got there, 20 years old or whatever, just didn't stick around.
Right.
And he stuck around longer, and he felt like that's why he made it. I don't know. So stick around, I guess, and make sure you have the capacity to do that, and you'll probably be successful.
Yeah. You have to put in the time.
You also have to be known. You have to become known as that person, whether it is the real estate guy, the architect, the plumber.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to be known as. I don't think people have a capacity to really know you as much more than one thing, like when it comes to professional type stuff.
Right.
So you can't be the plumber and the architect and the real estate guy.
No.
Even if you could do it all, it would confuse your clients. You got to be known as the one person. So you got to stick to it long enough to be known as that guy, and don't lose focus.
That's gold. Hey, whoever is listening to this podcast, they're walking with the gold information. I mean, that's just, I don't know if you guys are listening to like self-improvement, videos and influencers and stuff like Bryan just summed up. It's incredible. I mean, that was just really cool stuff. So you've been in Topeka for quite some time. What do you see that the next 5 years Topeka would be? What do you see? Where do you see your company would go from this point on?
Yeah,
because I think you picked one of the best towns in America. Topeka is a great place.
Well, our the company goal was to kind of increase by one person per year, so we're exceeding that. But we've had
So you're hiring then? I'm just telling the audience.
Yeah, we're hiring. Actually, the type of person we're looking for is like somebody that's like a licensed architect, well-rounded person. That would be an awesome person to join our team. But really, we're looking for any talented person with, kind of see our goals and wants to help grow our company. But that person would be awesome, like a licensed 10-year, 5-year person, 15-year person. That'd be awesome. We want to grow by one person a year. Eventually, I thought my main goal would be kind of get to 30 people by the time I retire, and we're kind of about halfway there. This is pretty cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So I've got 20 more years to build the other half of it. The other part of it, we want to build like an investment pool amongst our staff, where we specialize in, as kind of a side thing where we're trying to figure out, okay, is there ways that we can hire ourselves? So if there's a slump in the economy, we don't feel it as bad as maybe our competition might. And so we're building some real estate type properties that some of our staff could potentially invest in, and kind of grow this investment pool. Yeah, there's a client of mine that was doing this with his team. He's much bigger company than we are, but they were doing this, and I thought it was kind of a clever idea. And so we've been working on that for the last few years. So far, we've got one of our team members that's joined me in the investment. Others are, welcome to do it. They just haven't quite gotten there yet. I think part of it is we have to prove to everybody that, that they want to be on this investment.
The return is good, right?
Yeah, and so putting together the financials, showing people some of the first projects we started about 5 years ago still aren't even complete. So we got to finish them up. And one of them was just a phased project. So that was our biggest one. And we picked up a few other ones over the last few years, but we got to get them all going. They're slow processes because all of them are, for the most part, historic projects with utilizing historic tax credits. Usually it's like converting a kind of dilapidated building into apartments and kind of restoring the building.
Yeah. That's really cool though. That's really cool. I'm really excited to see where you will be at 5 years from now. If you guys have not had a chance to visit Bryan's office down on in Noto, which is the Noto art district, super cool building. If they will let you guys see it, you can go in and see the office. It's a really cool building, really cool office on the inside. One last question for you, Bryan, because I know for anybody's success, there's got to be mentors, inspirations along the way. Besides your father, your family, that you guys went through this thing together early on, who are some of the inspirational figures or mentors that you had along the way that really stand out?
Well, I worked around a lot of different architects over the years, and I always tried to, like learn from them and learn not only what they did good, what they did bad, or just kind of pick up what works, what doesn't work. Same with teachers and classmates in architecture school, kind of learning from other people. Mentor. Has anybody ever, I'm trying to think if anybody ever like took me under their wing and
Might
from
not
an
in that
architectural
fashion, but
standpoint. Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know if I was lucky enough to really get a really like somebody that really looked out for me, like throughout my architectural career. I had
Understood.
some good professors, but usually just first semester. I didn't have somebody like all the way through. And I wasn't always looking for that, maybe. It wasn't
Mhm.
like I never asked for it either.
But you
Um,
were able to piece all their stuff together,
I think
right?
so. I think that that would probably be the trick is I was, I was just I probably should have done that. I should have found somebody like that. And I just probably I'm trying to
Everybody's
think
path
who
is
who
different.
like is there anybody I call? I don't even call like anybody really. Sometimes some of my clients I might pick their brains if they're like developers
Yeah.
on different things and ask them for advice. Yeah, there's a guy I should give a shout out to. There's a guy named Mark Bernheide in Topeka, and he started doing historic renovations of old buildings in downtown. And my former firm was working with him, and I wasn't even working with him. I just kind of heard him, heard what he was doing. I was like,
Yeah.
that's really cool, really interesting. And I really liked his technique. I liked what he was doing. I liked his idea. And he was an early one in Topeka doing that. Now
Hmm.
others are doing it. I think we need more of those kind of people. Um, Luckily, after a few years of working, at some point he calls me on the phone, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I know that building. I'd be happy to help you on it." And so I got to work with him on the last several projects he's worked on, and
Yeah.
yeah, he's been a fun guy. I wouldn't say he's like necessarily like a mentor, but somebody that definitely I've like kind of looked up to and
He
in
inspired you.
some aspects. Yeah. There's another guy in Topeka named Ken Schmanke that's really cool.
Yeah, he's a
Like
cool guy.
K1 real estate, and he's got the town site tower.
Talented Tower.
And
That was the old American building,
yeah,
Bank of America building, right? He bought the
yeah.
whole thing and turned it into a penthouse or something,
Hmm.
and then a rental space.
And he's got the old post office downtown, the courthouse too. And those are some really neat projects. We're lucky enough to be helping him with that. He's got a really good brain for how to take an old building and use it and make it work in an economy like Topeka.
Hmm.
You can't just spend all the money you want and make it actually financially feasible. You have to be
Right.
really smart about how you invest your dollars.
Right.
He's really good at stuff like that. It's fun to listen to him think and talk and work with him on projects.
That's really cool.
And those two guys have pretty different approaches, so it's fun to learn from different developers and their approaches.
That's actually really cool though, because you partake, I think, a big time into big community building.
Hmm.
Because I just feel like it just not even years ago, just a few years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, Topeka always had this very negative connotation to it.
Yeah,
But now I think we can overturn that
yeah, yeah,
through efforts like yours.
yeah. I love Topeka. It's a great place to be, and I see a bright future. I think we need more entrepreneurs. We need more people willing to do little things. I don't think like, for instance, I'm interested in converting old buildings and renovating them and stuff.
Hmm.
The more the merrier. Anybody ever wants to do it, come talk to me. I'll teach you how to do it. It'd be awesome if ever we had 50 Mark Bernheides and 50 Ken Schmankes in Topeka. I think it'd be amazing.
We can probably make that happen,
Yeah.
Brian. We'll make that happen. Well, thank you so much, Brian, for all your time here, all your advice, and I think the audience is gonna be very glad to they tune in on this episode. Anyhow, thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Brian.